Section 1 of Bill and Doreen Get Hitched. Selections from The Songs of a Sentimental Bloke by Clarence James Dennis. Section 1. Ma. Her poor dead pa, she says, he kept a store, and then she weeps and stares hard at the floor. 'Twas through his death, she says, we was reduced to this, she says, and then she weeps some more. Her pa, she says, me poor late husband kept an hay and corn store. He'd no faults except him fallin' heavy off a load of chaff, which killed him on the 'struth, but how she wept. She blows her nose and sniffs. He would 'a' made, she says, a lot of money in the trade. But him took off so sudden like, we found he hadn't kept his life insurance paid. To think, she says, a child of mine should be reduced to workin' in a factory. If her poor pa, he hadn't died, she sobs, I says, it was a bit of luck for me. Then I gets red as 'ell, that is, I mean. I says, I might 'a' never met Doreen if he had not, and here I lose me block. I 'ope, I says, he snuffed it quick and clean. And that was 'ow I made me first debut. I dodged it cunnin' for a month or two. Doreen, she says, you'll 'ave to meet my ma some day, she says, and so I seen it through. I pictured some stern female in a cap who puts the fear o' God into a chap. And here she was, a-weepin' in her tea and drippin' moisture like a leaky tap. Two dilly sort of dogs made out of delf stares hard at me from off the mantelshelf. I seemed to sympathise with them there pups. I felt so stiff and brittle like meself. Clobber, me trousseau head to foot was new. Got up regardless for this interview. Stiff shirt, a Yankee suit split up the back, a tie with yellow spots and stripes of blue. Me cuffs kept playin' with me nervous fears. Me patent leathers nearly brought the tears. And there I sits with, "Yes, mum, thanks, indeed," me stand-up collar soarin' off me ears. "Life's 'ard," she says, and then she brightens up. "Still, we 'ave always 'ad our bite and sup. Doreen's been such a help, she 'as indeed. Some more tea, Willie? 'Ave another cup." Willie? Oh, hell! 'Ere was a flamin' pill, a moniker that always makes me ill. "If it's the same to you, mum," I replies, I answer quicker to the name of Bill. Up go 'er 'ands and eyes. That vulgar name! No, Willie, but it isn't all the same. My future son must be respectable. "All right," I says, "I s'pose it's in the game." Me future son, she says, right on from this, must not take anything I say amiss. I know me duty by me son-in-law, so, Willie, come and give yer ma a kiss. I done it, though I dunno 'ow I did. "Dear boy," she says, "to do as you are bid. Be kind to 'er," she sobs, "my little girl." And then I kissed Doreen. Says she, "Ah, kid." Doreen! And 'ow 'er pretty eyes did shine! No sight on earth or 'eaven's 'arf so fine. And as they looked at me she seemed to say, "I'm proud of 'im, I am, and 'e is mine." There was a sort of glimmer in 'er eye, an 'appy, nervous look, 'arf proud, 'arf shy. I seen 'er in me mind be'ind the cups in our own little Kipsy by and by. And then when Ma-in-law and me began to talk of 'ousehold things and scheme and plan, a sudden thought fair jolts me where I live. These is me women folk, and I'm a man. It's what they call responsibility. All of an heap that feelin' come to me. An' somewhere in me head I seemed to feel a sneakin' sort of wish that I was free. 'Ere's me 'oo never took no 'eed o' life, Investin' in a ma in law an' wife. Someone to battle for besides meself, Something to love an' shield from care an' strife. It makes yeh solim when yeh comes to think Wot love an' marridge means. Oh, strike me pink! It ain't all sighs an' kisses, it's yer life. An' 'ere's me tremblin' on the bloomin' brink. 'Er poor dead Par, she sez, an' gulps a sob. An' then I tells 'er 'ow I got a job. 'Er stormin' down at Jones's printin' joint, A decent sorter cop at 50 bob. Then things get 'omelike, an' we talks till late, An' tries to tease Doreen to fix the date. An' she gets sudden soft an' tender like, An' cries a bit when we parts at the gate. An' as I'm moochin' 'omeward from the car, A sudden notion stops me wiv a jar. Wot if Doreen, I thinks, should grow to be A fat ole weepin' willow like 'er ma? Oh, 'struth, it won't bear thinkin' of! It's crook! An' I'm a mean, unfeelin' dog to look At things like that. Doreen's Doreen to me, The sweetest peach on which a man was shook. 'Er poor dear Par, I s'pose 'e 'ad 'is day, An' kissed an' smooged an' loved 'er in 'is way, An' wed an' took 'is chances like a man. But, God, this splicin' racket ain't all play. Love is a gamble, an' there ain't no certs. Some day, I s'pose, I'll get wise to the skirts, An' learn to take the bitter wiv the sweet. But strike me purple, Willy! That's wot 'urts. Section 2 of Bill and Doreen Get Hitched. Selections from The Songs of a Sentimental Bloke by Clarence James Dennis. Section 2. Pilot Cove. Young friend, 'e sez, young friend! Well, spare me days! You'd think I was 'is own white-'eaded boy, The queer old finger wiv 'is gentle ways. Young friend, 'e sez, I wish you both great joy. The langwidge that them parson blokes employ Fair tickles me, the way 'e bleats an' brays. Young friend, 'e sez. Young friend, 'e sez, yes, my Doreen an' me, We're gettin' hitched all straight an' on the square. For when I talks about the registry, Oh, 'oly wars! You should 'a seen 'er stare. The registry, she sez, I wouldn't dare. I know a clergyman we'll go an' see. Young friend, 'e sez. Young friend, 'e sez, an' then 'e chats me straight, An' spouts of death an' 'ell an' mortal sins. You reckernize this step you contemplate Is grave, 'e sez, an' I jist stands an' grins. For when I chips Doreen she kicks me shins. Yes, very 'oly is the married state. Young friend, 'e sez. Young friend, 'e sez, an' then 'e mags a lot Of duty an' the spiritual life, To which I didn't tumble worth a jot. I'm sure, 'e sez, as you will 'ave a wife Who'll 'ave a noble influence on yer life. Who is 'er guardian? I sez, 'er old pot. Young friend, 'e sez. Young friend, 'e sez, oh, fix yer thoughts on high. All marridges is registered up there, An' you must cleave unto 'er till you die, An' cherish 'er wiv love an' tender care. Even in the days when she's no longer fair, She's still yer wife, 'e sez. Right, Buck, sez I. Young friend, 'e sez. Young friend, 'e sez, I sez, now listen 'ere. This isn't one of them impetuous leaps. There ain't no tart a 100th part so dear As 'er. She 'as me 'eart an' soul for keeps. And then Doreen, she turns away and weeps, but he just smiles. "You're deep in love, 'tis clear." "Young friend," he says. "Young friend," he says, and tears was in his eyes. "Strive hard, for many, many years I've lived, and I can but recall with tears and sighs the lives of some I've seen in marriage gived. My God," I says, "I'll strive as no bloke strived, for don't I know I've copped a bonzer prize?" "Young friend," he says. "Young friend," he says, and in his gentle way he pats the shoulder of my dear Doreen. "I've solemnized grand weddings in me day, but here's the sweetest little maid I've seen. She's fit for any man to be his queen, and you're more fortunate than you can say." Young friend," he says. "Young friend," he says, a queer old pilot bloke, with silver hair, the gentle way he dealt with her, the soft and kindly way he spoke to my Doreen, 'ud make a statue melt. I tell you, square an' all, I sort of felt a kiddish kind of feelin' like I'd choke. "Young friend," he says. "Young friend," he says, "you two on Tuesday week is to be joined in very 'oly bonds. To break them vows I 'ope you'll never seek, for I could curse them 'usbands who absconds." "I'll love 'er till I snuff it," I responds. "Ah, that's the way I like to hear you speak." "Young friend," he says. "Young friend," he says, an' then me an' he grips. "I wish you luck, you an' your lady fair, sweet maid," an' softly with his finger tips he takes an' strokes me cliner's shinin' 'air. An' when I seen 'er standin' blushin' there, I turns an' kisses 'er fair on the lips. "Young friend," he says. Section 3 of Bill and Doreen Get Hitched. Selections from The Songs of a Sentimental Bloke by Clarence James Dennis. Section 3 Hitched. "An' wilt you take this woman for to be your wedded wife?" Oh, strike me! Will I what? Take 'er? Doreen? 'E stands there askin' me, as if 'e thought per'aps I'd rather not. Take 'er? 'E seemed to think 'er kind was got like cigarette cards for the askin'. Still, I does me stunt in this 'ere hitchin' rot, an' speaks me piece. "Righto," I says, "I will." "I will," I says, an' tho' a joyful shout came from me bustin' 'eart — I know it did — me voice got sorter mangled comin' out, an' makes me whisper like a frightened kid. "I will," I squeaks, an' I'd 'a give a quid to 'ave it on the quiet wivout this fuss, an' all the starin' crowd that Ma 'ad bid to see this solim hitchin' up of us. "For richer or for poorer," so 'e bleats, "in sickness an' in health," an' there I stands, an' dunno 'arf the chatter I repeats, nor wot the 'ell to do wiv my two 'ands. But 'e don't hurry puttin' on our brands, this white 'aired pilot bloke, but gives it lip, dressed in 'is little shirt wiv frills an' bands. "In sickness an' in " Ah, I got the pip! An' once I missed me turn, an' Ginger Mick, 'oo's my best man, 'e ups an' beefs it out. "I will," 'e 'owls, an' fetches me a kick. "Your turn to chin," 'e tips wiv a shout. An' there I'm standin' like a gawky lout. Oh, spare me, but I seem to be all hands, an' wonders wot 'e's goin' crook about, wiv 'arf a mind to crack 'im where 'e stands. Oh, love me, but ole Ginger was a trick! Got up regardless for the solim rite. 'E 'awks the bunnies when 'e toils, does Mick, an' twice I saw 'im feelin' fer a light to start a fag, an' trembles lest 'e might, thro' force of 'abit like. 'E's nervous, too. That's plain, fer all 'is air of bluff an' skite, an' just as keen as me to see it thro'. But, 'struth, the women, how they love this frill! For Auntie Liz an' Ma, o' course, was there, an' Ma's two uncles' wives, an' Cousin Lil, an' 'arf a dozen more to grin an' stare. I couldn't make me 'ands fit anywhere. I felt like I was up before the beak. But my Doreen, she never turns an 'air, nor misses once when it's 'er turn to speak. Oh, strike! No more swell marridges fer me. It seems a blinded year afore 'e's done. We could 'a' fixed it in the registry twice over 'fore this cove 'ad 'arf begun. I s'pose the wimmin get some sort o' fun wiv all this guyver an' 'is Nibs's shirt. But seems to me it takes the bloomin' bun, this stylish splicin' of a bloke an' skirt. To be your wedded wife, oh, take a pull! What in the 'ell's 'e think I come 'ere for? An' so 'e drawls an' drones until I'm full, an' wants to do a duck clean out the door. An' yet, fer all 'is 'ighfalutin' jaw, Old Snowy was a reel good meanin' bloke. If 'twasn't fer the 'oly look 'e wore, you'd think 'e'd piled it on just fer a joke. An' when at last 'e shuts 'is little book, I 'eaves a sigh that nearly bust me vest. But 'Eavens! Now 'ere's Mother goin' crook, an' sobbin' awful on me manly chest. I wish she'd give them waterworks a rest. "My little girl," she 'owls, "oh, treat 'er well! She's young, too young to leave 'er mother's nest." "All right, ole chook," I nearly sez. Oh, 'ell! An' then we 'as a beano up at Mar's, a slap up feed wiv wine an' two big geese. Doreen sits next to me, 'er eyes like stars. Oh, 'ow I wish their blessed yap 'ud cease! The parson bloke, 'e speaks a little piece that makes me blush an' 'ang me silly 'ead. 'E sez 'e 'opes our lovin' will increase. I likes that pilot fer the things 'e said. 'E sez Doreen an' me is in a boat, an' sailin' on the matrimonial sea. 'E sez as 'ow 'e 'opes we'll always float in peace an' joy, from storm an' danger free. Then Mother gets to weepin' in 'er tea, an' Auntie Liz sobs like a winded colt, an' Cousin Lil comes round an' kisses me, until I feel I'll 'ave to do a bolt. Then Ginger gets end up an' makes a speech. 'E'd 'ad a couple, but 'e wasn't shick. "Me cobber 'ere," 'e sez, "'as copped a peach. Of all the barrer load she is the pick. I 'opes 'e won't forget 'is pals too quick, as wus 'is friends in olden days, becors I'm trustin' later on," sez Ginger Mick, "to celebrate the christenin'." 'Oly wars! At last Doreen an' me, we gets away, an' leaves 'em doin' nothin' to the scran. We're honeymoonin' down beside the bay. I gives an 'arf a dollar to the man wot drives the cab, an' like two kids we ran to catch the train. Oh, strike! I could 'a' flown. We gets the carridge right agen the van. She whistles, jolts, an' starts, an' we're alone. Doreen an' me precious bit o' fluff. Me own true weddid wife, an' we're alone. She seems so frail, an' me so big an' rough. I dunno wot this feelin' is that's grown inside me 'ere that makes me feel I own a thing so tender, like I'd fear to squeeze too 'ard fer fear she'll break. Then wiv a groan I start to 'ear a coot call, "Tickets, please!" You could 'a' outed me right on the spot. I wus so rattled when that porter spoke. For 'struth, them tickets I 'ad fair forgot. But 'e jist laughs an' takes it fer a joke. "We must excuse," 'e sez, "new married folk." An' I pays up an' grins an' blushes red. It shows 'ow married life improves a bloke. If I'd been single I'd 'a' punched 'is 'ead. Section 4 of Bill and Doreen Get Hitched. Selections from The Songs of a Sentimental Bloke by Clarence James Dennis. Section 4. Beef Tea. She never magged, she never said no word, but sat and looked at me and never stirred. I could ha' bluffed it out if she'd have been fair narked and let me have it with her tongue. But silence told me how her heart was wrung. Poor hurt Doreen! Gawstruth, I'd sooner fight with 50 men than get one look like that from her again. She never moved, she never spoke no word. That hurt look in her eyes, like some scared bird. Here is the man I loved, it seemed to say. He's mine, this crawlin' thing, an' I'm his wife. Tied up for good, an' all me joy in life is chucked away. If she'd have bashed me, I'd have felt no hurt. But here she treats me like I was dirt. How is a man to guard agen that look? For other women, when their blokes go crook an' lobs 'ome with the wages of a jag, they smashes things an' carries on a treat, an' howls an' scolds an' wakes the bloomin' street with noisy mag. But her, she never speaks, she never stirs. I drops me bundle, an' the game is hers. Just 2 months wed, 8 weeks of married bliss with my Doreen, an' now it's come to this. What was I thinkin' of? God, I ain't fit to kiss the place her little feet 'as been. Her that I called me wife, me own Doreen. Fond dreams 'as flit. Love's done a bunk, an' joy is up the pole, an' shame an' sorrow's roostin' in me soul. 'Twas all because of Ginger Mick, that cow. I wish I 'ad 'im 'ere to deal wiv now. I'd pass 'im one, I would. 'E ain't no man. I meets 'im Tuesday evenin' up the town. "Wotto," 'e chips me, "can you keep one down?" I says I can. We has a couple, then meets 3 or 4 flash coves I used to know, an' 'as some more. "How are you on a little gamble, kid?" Says Ginger Mick. "Last night I'm on 4 quid. Come round an' try yer luck at Steeny's school." "No," says me conscience. Then I thinks, why not? An' buy 'er presents if I wins a pot. A blazin' fool I was. For 'arf a mo' I 'as a fight. Then conscience skies the wipe. Says I, "All right." 10 minutes later I was back once more. Kip in me 'and on Steeny Isaac's floor. Me luck was in, an' I was 'eadin' good. Yes, back again amongst the same old crew. An' all the time, down in me 'eart, I knew I never should. Next thing I knows it's after 2 o'clock. 2 in the mornin', an' I've done me block. What odds, I think, I'm in for it all right. An' so I stops an' gambles all the night, an' bribes me conscience with the gilt I wins. But when I comes out in the cold, 'ard dawn, I know I've crooled me pitch, me soul's in pawn. Me flamin' sins, they 'its me in a 'eap right where I live, For I 'ave broke the solim vow I give. She never magged, she never said no word, An' when I speaks it seems she never 'eard. I could 'ave sung an 'ymn, I feels so gay. If she'd 'ave only roused I might 'a' smiled. She just seems 'urt an' crushed, not even riled. I turns away an' yanks me carkis out into the yard Like some whipped pup, an' kicks meself reel 'ard. An' then I sneaks to bed an' feels dead crook. For golden quids I couldn't face that look, That trouble in the eyes of my Doreen. Oh, strike! What made me go an' do this thing? I feel just like a chewed up bit of string, An' rotten mean. For 'arf an hour I lies there feelin' cheap, An' then I s'pose I must 'a' fell asleep. "Here, kid, drink this." I wakes an' lifts me 'ead. and sees her standin' there beside the bed, a basin in her 'ands and in her eyes that with unshed tears is shinin' wet. The sorter look I never shall forget until I dies. "'Ere, kid, drink this," she sez, an' smiles at me. I looks, an' spare me days, it wus beef tea! Beef tea! She treats me like an invalid! Me that 'as caused 'er lovin' 'eart to bleed! It 'urts me worse than maggin' fer a week. 'Er 'oo 'ad right to turn dead sour on me, fergives like that, an' feeds me wiv beef tea. I tries to speak. An' then — I ain't ashamed o' wot I did — I 'ides me face an' blubbers like a kid. Section 5 of Bill and Doreen Get Hitched. Selections from The Songs of a Sentimental Bloke by Clarence James Dennis. Section 5 Uncle Jim. "I've got no time for wasters, lad," says he. "Give me a man with grit," says Uncle Jim. He bores his cute old eyes right into me, while I stares 'ard an' gives it back to 'im. Then all at once he grips me 'and in 'is. "Some'ow," he sez, "I likes yer ugly phiz. You got a look," he sez, "like you could stay, although you mauls King's English when you yaps, an' 'angs flash frills on everything you say. I ain't no grammarist meself, per'aps, but langwidge is an 'elp, I own," sez Unk, "when things is goin' crook." An' 'ere he wunk. "You'll find it tough," he sez, "to knuckle down. Good farmin' is a gift, like spoutin' slang. You'll 'ave to cut the luxuries of town, an' chuck the manners of this back street gang. For country life ain't cigarettes an' beer." "I'm game," I says "Uncle, put it 'ere." Like that I took the plunge an' slung the game. I've parted wiv them joys I 'eld most dear. I've sent the leery bloke that bore me name clean to the pack, wivout one pearly tear. An' from the ashes of a ne'er do well a bloomin' farmer's blossomin' like 'ell. Farmer! That's me, wiv this 'ere strong right 'and. I've gripped the plough an' blistered just a treat. Doreen an' me 'as gone upon the land. Yours truly fer the burden an' the 'eat. Yours truly fer upendin' chunks of soil, the 'ealthy, 'earty, 'appy son o' toil. I owns I've hankered fer me former joys. I've 'ad me hours of broodin' on me woes. I've missed the comp'ny an' I've missed the noise, the football matches an' the picter shows. I've missed — but, say, it makes me feel fair mean to whip the cat an' then see my Doreen. To see the colour comin' in 'er cheeks, to see 'er eyes grow brighter day be day, the new glad way she looks an' laughs an' speaks, is worth 10 times the things I've chucked away. An' there's a secret, whispered in the dark, 'as made me 'eart sing like a flamin' lark. Just let me tell yeh 'ow it come about. The things that I've been thro' 'ud fill a book. Right from me birth Fate played to knock me out. The 'and that I 'ad dealt to me was crook. Then comes Doreen an' patches up me past. Now Forchune's come to bunk wiv me at last. First off, one night poor Mar gets suddin fits, an' floats wivout the time to wave good byes. Doreen is all broke up the day she flits. It tears me 'eart in two, the way she cries. To see 'er grief, it almost made me glad. I never knowed the Mar I must 'ave 'ad. We done poor Mother proud when she went out, a slap up send off trimmed wiv tears an' crape. An' then fer weeks Doreen she mopes about, an' life takes on a gloomy sorter shape. I watch 'er face get pale, 'er eyes grow dim, till, like some airy angel, comes old Jim. A cherub-togged in sunburn and a beard, and duds that shouted hayseed for a mile. Care took the count the moment he appeared, and sorrow shrivelled up before his smile. He got the hammerlock on my good will the moment that he says, "So this is Bill." It's got me beat. Doreen's late pa, some way, was second cousin to his brother's wife, something like that. In less than half a day it seemed he'd been my uncle all me life. He takes me hand, I don't know how it is. He says, "But, lad, I likes that ugly phiz." And when he'd stayed with us a little while, the house begun to look like home once more. Doreen, she brightens up beneath his smile, and hugs him till I kids I'm gettin' sore. Then late one night he opens up his scheme, and passes me what looks like some fond dream. He has a little fruit farm, doin' well. He's saved a tidy bit to see him through. He's gettin' old for toil and wants a spell, and here's an 'ome just waitin' for us two. It's hers and yours for keeps when I am gone. Says Uncle Jim, "Lad, will you take it on?" So that's the strength of it, an' here's me now, a flamin' berry farmer, full of toil, playin' jiu-jitsu with an 'orse and plough, an' coaxin' fancy tucker from the soil, an' longin' while I wrestles with the rake for days when my poor back forgets to ache. Me days an' nights is full of schemes an' plans to figure profits an' cut out the loss. An' when the pickin's on I 'ave me 'ands to take me orders while I act the boss. It's sorter sweet to 'ave the right to rouse, an' my Doreen's the lady of the 'ouse. To see 'er bustlin' round about the place, full of the simple joy of doin' things, that thoughtful, 'appy look upon 'er face that open peace an' pride o' labour brings, is worth the crowd o' joys I knew one time, an' makes regrettin' 'em seem like a crime. An' every little while old Uncle Jim comes up to stay a bit an' pass a tip. It gives us 'eart just for to look at 'im an' feel the friendship in 'is warm 'and grip. 'Im with the sunburn on 'is kind old dial, 'im with the sunbeams in 'is sweet old smile. "I've got no time for wasters, lad," says 'e, "but that there ugly mug o' yourn I trust. An' so I reckon that it's up to me to make a bloomin' do of it or bust. I got to take the backache with the rest, an' plug along an' do me little best." Luck ain't no steady visitor, I know, but now an' then it calls, for look at me. You wouldn't take me 'bout a year ago, free gratis, with a shillin' pound of tea. Then in a blessed 'eap old fortune lands, a missus an' a farm fair in me 'ands. Section 6 of Bill and Doreen Get Hitched. Selections from The Songs of a Sentimental Bloke by Clarence James Dennis. Section 6. The Kid. My son, them words just like a blessed song is singin' in me 'eart the 'ole day long, over an' over, while I'm scared I'll wake out of a dream to find it all a fake. My son, 2 little words that yesterdee was just 2 simple, senseless words to me. An' now no man, not since the world begun, made any better prayer than that, my son. My son an' bloomin' heir, ours, 'ers an' mine. The finest kid in the sun don't shine. There ain't no joy for me beneath the blue unless I'm gazin' lovin' at them two. A little while ago it was just me, a lonely longin' streak of misery, an' then 'twas 'er an' me, Doreen, my wife, an' now it's 'im an' us, an' such is life. And 'struth, he is king pin, the head serang. I mustn't tramp about or talk no slang. I mustn't pinch his nose or make a face. I mustn't — strike! He seems to own the place. Cunnin'? You'd think, to look into his eyes, he knew the game clean through, he seems that wise. With her and nurse he is the leadin' man, and poor old Dad's amongst the also-ran. "Goo goo," he says, and curls his cunnin' toes. You'd be surprised the heaps of things he knows. I'll swear he tumbles I'm his father too, the way he squints at me and says "Goo goo." Why, 'smornin' here his lordship gets a grip fair on me finger, give it quite a nip. And when I tugs he won't let go his 'old. 'Angs on like that, and 'im not 3 weeks old. "Goo goo," he says, "I'll swear you never did in all your natural see such a kid. The cunnin' ways he's got, the knowin' stare — there ain't a youngster like 'im anywhere. And when he gets a little pain inside, he's dead straight griffin, ain't to be denied. I'm sent to talk sweet nothin's to the fowls, while nurse turns 'andsprings every time he 'owls. But say, I'll tell you straight, I've been thro' 'ell. The things I thought I wouldn't dare to tell, lest in the tellin' I might feel again one little part of all that fear an' pain. It come so sudden that I lost me block. First it was 'ell for leather to the doc, 'oo took it all so calm 'e made me curse. An' then I sprints like mad to get the nurse. By gum, that woman! But she beat me flat. A man's just putty in a game like that. She owned me 'appy 'ome almost before she fairly got 'er nose inside me door. Sweatin' I was, but cold with fear inside. An' then to think a man could be denied 'is wife an' 'ome, an' told to fade away by just one fat old nurse 'oo's in 'is pay. I was too weak wiv funk to start an' rouse. 'Struth, ain't a man the boss in 'is own 'ouse? You go an' chase yerself, she tips me straight. There's nothin' now for you to do but wait. Wait? God, I never knew what waitin' meant in all me life till that day I was sent to loaf around while there inside — oh, strike! I couldn't tell you what that hour was like. 3 times I comes to listen at the door. 3 times I drags meself away once more, 'arf dead wiv fear, 'arf filled wiv tremblin' joy. An' then she beckons me an' says, "A boy." "A boy," she says, an' both is doin' well. I drops into a chair an' jist says, "'Ell!" It was a prayer. I feels both crook an' glad. An' that's the strength of bein' made a dad. I thinks of church when in that room I goes, 'Oldin' me breath an' walkin' on me toes. For 'arf a mo' I feared me nerve 'ud fail to see 'er lyin' there so still an' pale. She looks so frail at first I dursn't stir. An' then I leans across an' kisses 'er. An' all the room gets sorter blurred an' dim. She smiles an' moves 'er 'ead. "Dear lad, kiss 'im." Near smothered in a ton of snowy clothes, first thing I sees a bunch of stubby toes. Bald 'ead, termater face, an' 2 big eyes. "Look, kid," she smiled at me, "ain't 'e a size?" 'E didn't seem no sorter size to me. But yet I speak no lie when I agree 'E is, I says, an' smiles back at Doreen, the biggest nipper for 'is age I've seen. She turns away, 'er eyes is brimmin' wet. "Our little son," she says, "our precious pet." An' then I seen a great big drop roll down An' fall kersplosh fair on 'is nibs's crown. An' still she smiles. "A lucky sign," she said. "Somewhere in some ole book one time I read The child will sure be blessed all through the years who's christened with his mother's happy tears. Kiss him, she says, an' I'm afraid to take too big a mouthful of him, fear he'd break. An' when he gets a fair look at me phiz, he puckers up his nose, an' then, gee whiz! 'Ow did he howl? In 'arf a second more Nurse 'ad me 'ustled clean outside the door. Scarce knowin' 'ow, I gets out in the yard An' leans against the fence an' thinks reel 'ard. A long, long time I looks at my two 'ands. They're all I got, I thinks. They're all that stands 'Twixt this 'ard world an' them I calls me own. An' for their sakes I'll work 'em to the bone. Them vows an' things sound like a lot of guff. Maybe it's foolish thinkin' all this stuff. Maybe it's childish like to scheme an' plan. But I dunno, it's that way with a man. I only know that kid belongs to me. We ain't decided yet what he's to be. Doreen, she says he's got a poet's eyes. But I ain't got much use for them soft guys. I think we oughter make him somethin' great. A bookie or a champion 'eavy weight. Some callin' that'll give him room to spread. A fool could see he's got a clever 'ead. I know he's good an' honest, for his eyes Is jist like 'ers, so big an' lovin' wise. They carries peace an' trust where'er they goes. An' say, the nurse, she says, 'e's got my nose. Dead ring fer me old conk, she says it is. More like a blob o' putty on 'is phiz, I think, but 'e's a fair 'ard case, all right. I'll swear I thought 'e wunk at me last night. My wife an' family, don't it sound all right? That's what I whispers to meself at night. Some day I s'pose I'll learn to say it loud An' careless, kiddin' that I don't feel proud. My son! If there's a God who's leanin' near To watch our dilly little lives down here, 'E smiles, I guess, if 'E's a lovin' one. Smiles friendly like to 'ear them words, "My son." Section 7 of Bill and Doreen Get Hitched. The Mooch of Life. This evenin' I was sittin' with Doreen, Peaceful an' 'appy with the day's work done, Watchin' be'ind the orchard's bonzer green The flamin' wonder of the settin' sun. Another day gone by, another night Creepin' along to douse day's golden light. Another dawnin' when the night is gone, To live an' love, an' so life mooches on. Times I 'ave thought, when things was goin' crook, When 'ope turned nark an' love forgot to smile, Of somethin' I once seen in some old book, Where an old sore 'ead asks, "Is life worf while?" But in that stillness, as the day grows dim, An' I am sittin' there wiv 'er an' 'im, My wife, my son, an' strength in me to strive, I only know it's good to be alive. You live, you love, you learn; an' when you come To square the ledger in some thoughtful hour, The everlastin' answer to the sum Must alwus be, "Where's sense in gettin' sour?" For when you come to weigh the good an' bad, The gladness wiv the sadness you 'ave 'ad, Then 'im 'wose faith in 'uman goodness fails Forgets to put 'is liver in the scales. Livin' an' lovin', learnin' day be day, Pausin' a moment in the balmy strife To find that 'elpin' others on the way Is gold coined for yer profit — such is life. I've studied books wiv yearnin's to improve, To 'eave meself out of me lowly groove. An' 'ere is all the change I ever got. 'Ark at yer 'eart, an' you kin learn a lot. I gives it in that wisdom of the mind I wasn't built to play no lofty part. All such is welcome to the joys they find. I only know the wisdom of me art. An' ever it has taught me, day be day, the one same lesson in the same old way. Look for your profits in the arts o' friends, for 'atin' never paid no dividends. Life's what you make it, an' the bloke who tries to grab the shinin' stars from out the skies goes crook on life an' calls the world a cheat, an' tramples on the daisies at his feet. But when the moon comes creepin' o'er the hill, an' when the mopoke calls along the creek, I takes me cup o' joy an' drinks me fill, an' asks meself what better could I seek. In every song I 'ear the thrushes sing that everlastin' message seems to bring. An' every wind that whispers in the trees gives me the tip there ain't no joys like these. Livin' an' lovin', wanderin' on your way, reapin' the 'arvest of a kind deed done, an' watchin' in the sundown of your day yourself again grow nobler in your son. Knowin' that every coin of kindness spent bears interest in your heart at cent per cent. Measurin' wisdom by the peace it brings to simple minds that values simple things. An' when I take a look along the way that I 'ave trod, it seems the man knows best who's met wiv slabs of sorrer in 'is day, when 'e is truly rich an' truly blest. An' I am rich because me eyes 'ave seen the love light in the eyes of my Doreen. An' I am blest because me feet 'ave trod a land whose fields reflect the smile o' God. Livin' an' lovin', learnin' to forgive the deeds an' words of some un'appy bloke who's missed the bus, so 'ave I come to live an' take the 'ole mad world as 'arf a joke. Sittin' at evenin' in this sunset land, with 'er in all the world to 'old me 'and, a son to bear me name when I am gone. Livin' an' lovin', so life mooches on. End of Section 7. End of Bill and Doreen Get Hitched. Selections from The Songs of a Sentimental Bloke by Clarence James Dennis.